So today we're going to talk about 10 ways that you are being manipulative. And no, this doesn't mean that you're doing it intentionally. This doesn't mean that you're doing it with any type of ill will or covertness to it. But nonetheless, we have to be self-aware so we can start correcting these behaviors so we can live a better life for ourselves and live a better life for everybody else. So that's what we're going to talk about today. 10 ways that we are actually being manipulative.
Check it out.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori, and man, I told you that this was coming because 2 weeks ago we did on victim mentality. Last week we did on passive aggression. So today I wanted to take those two of the 10 and I want to kind of put them in here because the biggest thing, and it was funny, I was just listening to something recently and somebody was like, we all say that we want to do better until it comes to checking ourselves. And, not everybody wants to do that, but until you do it, you're not going to be able to really make that growth and the strides and create those good relationships that you're seeking, right? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And then over on the Patreon, we're going to give you, I guess me and all of my many personalities, are going to give you a sort of a roadmap on, to be more aware of those behaviors, to be more aware that you're doing those things. And before I even get into it, as with everything, this is not something to beat yourself up. This isn't something to say, see, I knew I was this terrible person and I'm so horrible. We're not doing that. That goes into victim mentality. So this is specifically and strictly for you to be self-aware, right? Because just like that guy, and I cannot remember who it was, or I totally credit them because it was on my Insta stories or something. And I was looking at it and he was in an interview with someone and he said just those things, and it is so true. Like how many times have you wanted to do better, but then the moment you either get called out on it or you feel like you're called out on it or you're aware of it, you almost get defensive behind that. So that's what we're going to talk about today because you want to live your best life, right? Like I'm assuming most of you who are here, all of you who are here, I dare to say, want to live a better life. You want to have better relationships with people. You want to feel better about yourself. You want to have that self-esteem. And a lot of this, what we're going to talk about, is based in low self-esteem. And again, we know that so much of this is going to come from your past traumas, dealing with childhood trauma, dealing with narcissism, a narcissistic relationship. We know that that's not your fault. And this isn't your fault. It's just, we want you to get to the space, right? I want you to get to a space to where you are aware of it, to where you can take stock of it and go, oh, I see. Because it's very easy to blame everybody else, right? I mean, how much easier is it to be like, well, that person's a jerk and that person's this and these people did this? Of course, it's much easier to do that, right? It really is, because then you don't have to deal with your own stuff. But this is about you. And most of my content, I would say 85% of my content is going to be all based about you. Either how you deal with someone who is passive aggressive, or, because these people are going to exist in your life. It's not like it's not going to happen. But I'm always going to put the power back in your hands so you can stop giving your power to everybody else. So I want to cover those first two that we already talked about a couple weeks ago in detail. So I'll just kind of gloss over those a little bit, but the victim mentality. People owe me something. I had a bad childhood. I had this horrible relationship. I would do it, so they should, things like that. And if you haven't heard that podcast, I would encourage you to go back the last two episodes and listen to that one, as well as the one from last week, which is on passive aggression. And being passive aggressive is manipulative. Being in a victim state of mind is manipulation, because you don't realize that a lot of times you're doing that to garner sympathy or empathy. And not that that's a bad thing, but it is when you start manipulating people, start lying, which is one of the ones that we're going to talk about. And it's not so much lying, it's more or less withholding information and being very covert in what it is. So, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's important that you understand how much manipulation comes with that. And again, it could have been your survival skills, right? You could have been surviving this long, and that's how you had to do it. Okay, so we're here today. So again, you're not going to beat yourself up. Through any of these, you are not going to beat yourself up. You are going to be aware of it, and you're going to be honest with yourself. Because if you're not honest with yourself and you catch yourself getting defensive during this, then this is directly for you. Wherever you're defensive, this is 1000% for you, right? Because just because you're defensive doesn't mean that you're right. Usually when we're defensive, it's because we don't want to take accountability of something. And we've all been there. Everybody listening to this has been there. Me, you, everybody. You just don't want to live there. Okay? Because this game of life, this world that we live in that we called living, it's got weird things in it. Like you got ups, you got downs, you got good, you got bad, you got them all. So we're all trying to wing it. So you got to be gentle and kind to yourself on this journey. Okay? And yeah, and I think that one thing for you is to allow yourself the ability to look at yourself and not judge yourself, but be aware. That comes with emotional intelligence. To look at something and go like, wow, okay, I really need to work there, without being like, well, okay, like, I mean, I can't help it. Like, that's just how I've been. No. No need to do that. So let's not go into reactive mode. So anyway, that's what we talked about in victim mentality. Highly recommend that you go back and listen to that. And then last week when we were talking about passive aggression, that is extremely manipulative. You know, and sulking is a big piece of that. Sulking and just, oh my God, like sulking, feeling really sorry for yourself. Believe it or not, procrastination is a form of self-sabotage, which we know, but procrastination can also be manipulation without you realizing it. And you're like, wait, how? Not so much if it's something that you want to accomplish, but if it's something that, let's say somebody says, hey, I'd really love for you to help me put up a fence. I don't know, paint something, whatever. And you feel some kind of way because your entitlement and your expectations were like, well, okay, sure, I'll come help you. Nice of you to ask, since I asked you and you couldn't do it for me. So yeah, I'll do it on my time. So you're kind of procrastinating and holding it over somebody's head. That's manipulation. If you're not going to do it to be kind for yourself, then just don't do it. Then just don't do it. Period. I'd rather you not do it than do it and then try to hold something and then be like, yeah, I got all this power because now they want something, but they couldn't be there for me. So, and now we start that whole system and cycle. So if you find yourself procrastinating for someone else's stuff that, let's say, yeah, I'll make you a blanket. Yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do that. And you find yourself, and I don't mean full on procrastination just because you're like trying to make it through the day. I mean that, fine, sure, I'll do it on my time. Like that's what I'm talking about. And that goes into the manipulative side of it. Yeah, sure, I'll do you that favor when I feel like it. Okay, well, no. Now we're being way manipulative. And when you're going into being sulking and then that under talking that we talked about in passive aggression. Oh, well, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I don't understand why you couldn't I could have done that. Like, okay. And those backhanded compliments, right? A backhanded compliment is 1000% passive aggressive, 1000% manipulative, right? Oh, I mean, you look really good for your age. Oh, what? What? Wow, I can't believe you got through that. You're not really good at reading. What? That's all manipulation because passive aggression is manipulation. So I would encourage you to go back and listen to procrastination and listen to victim mentality. So those are two that we know are serious manipulation that you do, that you may or may not realize that you do it. Now, if you realize that you do it, it doesn't mean that you beat yourself up anymore. It just means that you have to say, okay, why am I so focused on trying to get people to do what I want them to do? What is it about myself that I'm avoiding? Because essentially you're avoiding something within yourself. Okay, so let's talk about number 3. Number 3 is projecting your stuff onto other people. Projecting your insecurities, projecting your expectations, which expectations are hugely manipulative too. And it's just not a good thing. But when you're projecting your insecurities onto another person, it becomes way problematic. Okay, because let's say you had a bad experience on Tinder. Okay. You were on Tinder. And I don't mean like a dangerous experience, just a bad experience. You're like 3 or 4 guys that were kind of lying. Like it wasn't anything detrimental. You were just like, it's not really my jam. I'm going to go somewhere else. Right. And then your friend says to you, well, hey, I'm going to join Tinder. Well, she didn't ask you she knows that you were on it, but she didn't ask for your opinion because you already kind of told her that you didn't have a great time there. Well, then you go, well, okay, I don't know if you should do all that. Like it's a nightmare there. Nuh-uh. Don't project your stuff. And don't project your insecurities. You don't want to be projecting your insecurities onto people. Well, I'm insecure, so this is what I need. This is what I would want. I need them to do that, right? That goes into that expectation. And anytime you're projecting this idea, so this is where it becomes a manipulation. You have a fantasy in your mind. You've created a narrative in your own head, a storyline of what role that person is going to fit. Person, thing, place, doesn't matter. Okay. It's like going on a trip. You could do this with a place. You say, oh my God, I'm going to go to France and it's going to be spectacular and I'm going to have the best time. It's going to be Emily in Paris. I'm going to love every bit of it. And you get there and you have a good time, but it didn't live up to this hype that you built in your head. Now you're mad at France. Ugh, oh, that sucked. Well, no, it didn't suck. You had this unrealistic expectation because you had this fantasy and you projected it on all of France. Well, it's the same exact thing when it comes to people. People are people and they have their own direction. They have their own goals and you may or may not be a part of that. So where it becomes manipulative is when you create a fantasy of how it's going to be with that person or that thing. And then when it doesn't work that way, it's not even that you're disappointed. You're going to do anything in your power to get that to fit in that box. Well, if I lie about it, if I'm passive aggressive about it, if I play a victim to it, then the person is going to come to me, right? This goes into attachment. Now, attachment in itself is not manipulative, but if you're not healing your attachment, your behaviors become very manipulative, not the attachment itself, right? It's kind of like a comorbidity type thing, right? And so it's very, very important that you understand that just because you have a role. Now, had you said to all of France, you could pick up the phone and France as a continent would pick up the phone and you'd go, hey, these are my expectations. And they go, hey, well, that's cool, but that's not how it is here. You're going to have a good time here, but I think how you think I'm going to be may not be how I'm going to be, right? But now France obviously can't do that, but a person can. A person can. Now, this also goes for you. If you feel that someone is trying to get you to fit into a box, it's okay to kind of call them out on it, right? Matter of fact, you should, because that's how you prevent this manipulation from happening. You let somebody know, hey, I'm not going to fit in that box of yours. And that's okay if they don't understand it. But many people will have this fantasy on the relationship that they want, the friendship that they want, the love relationship that they want, the amount of sex that they're going to have, and all of these beautiful things that they're going to have. And they're willing to do anything to make that happen. They're willing to lie. They're willing to omit information. They're willing to do any of that just to keep you on the hook. And that's manipulation. And so now you have to check yourself and say, am I doing that? Okay. Be honest with yourself, not judgment. Do you find yourself either withholding information? Do you find yourself doing that procrastination for them? Yeah, sure. I'll do it for you when I get to it, because now there's this weird level of power. Do you find yourself doing that? If you are, that's you being manipulative, right? So then be aware of it. So going forward, you're not making those same types of behaviors. You're not doing those same types of behaviors. And that goes into the fourth one, which is lying. Now, listen, I dare to say every human being on the planet lies about something, right? You know, I mean, you fib about things, you fib about Santa Claus, you fib about these things, and, you know, and lying, omitting information isn't necessarily lying, but it is manipulation, right? So when you omit something, when you're not giving the full details, so someone can do you a favor or someone can do something for you or they can fit into the narrative that you want, that's manipulation. Okay. So everybody lies from time to time. Like I said, oh yeah, you go to the MVA, you tell them you weigh this amount, but you don't. Like, I mean, it doesn't always have to be this like horrible, horrible thing because you're lying about things. But where it becomes manipulation is when you don't give the full details because you want something in return. Or you give just enough to keep them talking to you and kind of on that sort of cycle and journey, right? And so that's what you have to ask yourself. Ask yourself right now, have you omitted things? Have you not told the truth 100% about something because you wanted something from somebody or you wanted it to be the situation to be different than what it was? If that's the case, yes, you have been manipulative. So you ask yourself, what was it? Was I attached? Was I going through my attachment? Was I going through my insecurities? Again, these are seriously meant to just bring light to the areas you need to work on. Okay. So you got to ask yourself, now this is not to be confused with not telling people things out of privacy. That is not the same thing. That is not the same thing. Because when you are keeping your next move private, that's not manipulation. That's you are protecting your peace. You're keeping your privacy. It becomes manipulation if you're holding back information to get something from somebody, not just to protect your peace and to not have your idea stolen or not to want to have feedback. That's totally different. Okay, that's good. We want that. We want you to grind in the dark and shine in the light. We want you to be as private as possible. Everybody doesn't need to know everything. Everybody doesn't need to know every move that you're making. That's great. That's beautiful. Love that. Let's live there. Where it becomes problematic and dangerous is when you start kind of manipulating a situation by holding back information and only giving half truths in order to garner either sympathy, empathy, or some favor or whatever from that person. So that's where the difference is. So you got to ask yourself, we'd love for you to be private. You do not need to share everything with everybody. That is like on point. Love it. Here for every little bit of it. Okay. Now that goes into number 5, which we've just already talked about, but it is expectations. If you do anything on this planet with an expectation, you're being manipulative. And again, nobody said you're doing it on purpose. If you do something kind for someone with a level of expectation, you are doing it as a transaction. And someone said to me, and you guys know I practice Buddhism, have for many years, so you have no expectations. I've said this multiple times. If I buy you a Tiffany necklace and I spent 6 months designing it, it's a specially made thing, and I give it to you and you don't say thank you, I don't care. If you take it and you throw it down the creek, I don't care. I've given it to you. What you do with it is not my problem, because I don't attach me giving something to you in like, oh, well, you better value this. That's great if you do. If you say thank you and you love wearing it, beautiful. I'm here for it. I'm so happy that you are. But I'm not going to be any like, well, I'm not going to give her anything. Now, there comes a point in time where you can't have people take advantage of you, right? And this is why you have to remember, you can't just buy people. Stop trying to buy people. Stop trying to overpraise people, which we're going to talk about that in a minute. Like, stop doing that. All right? Because you got to work on yourself. Don't worry if somebody can only be around you because you're paying for them to be around you, or you do something for them all the time, every day. Well, yeah, that's a problem. That is totally, totally different than doing something kind. Okay? Because that's totally different. Because again, you're not doing it to be kind. You're doing it with an expectation. You're doing it with, if I am nice to this person, they'll be my friend. If I buy them 800,000 things, they'll keep me around. If you see what I'm saying? You're still doing it with an expectation. So you'll know the difference, because when you're kind, you kind of don't care if anybody returns it or not. Seriously. But that's going to come with emotional maturity. It's going to come with emotional intelligence. It's going to come with a lot of things, okay? And so you got to be kind to yourself. So if you find yourself doing anything with expectations, now, that's not to be confused with boundaries. I don't expect you to adhere to my boundaries. That's how it is in my world. Like, you don't have to. I'm not begging you to, but there's going to come a point in time where I'm going to distance from you. It's not an ultimatum. An ultimatum is like, you better do this or I'm done. Yeah, because that comes from emotion. No, if it does not serve my best and highest good, I'm going to distance from it. That is not an ultimatum. It's not a fall in line. These are my boundaries. If you don't adhere to them, that's fine, but I'm not going to interact with you. There's not a level of high emotion there. And you got to know what your boundaries are, and that's why you stick to them. Boundaries, no one can overstep a boundary that you hold, because a boundary carries a consequence. And you should have them, I should have them, everybody should have them. So remember, a boundary is, an expectation is, I did this, you better do this. I would do this, you should do this. This is what I need, so you have to do this. No, that's the manipulative part. The boundary is, that's okay. Like, if you don't respect this, that's okay, but I'm going to distance. You're not trying to make them fit in a box. You accept the fact that they may not choose to do that, and then they will not be in your life. And that's okay. That's beautiful. But you got to curb these expectations. You got to stop thinking, well, because then this goes back to that, for the other one that we were talking about, projecting your stuff. in creating a fantasy. Well, this is how I want the relationship to be, right? So, which we already know is manipulative when you are trying to force it or you're trying to do anything possible to take away their full free will. If you take that in combination with this one, the expectations, you'll see how those two are married. I expect to go to France and I expect to have a great time because I've told myself in my fantasy head that this is exactly how things are going to go. Well, that's not how life works. Well, I moved to France to be with my friend. Did she ask you to come to France? No, but I wanted to be closer. Okay, so you had an expectation that when you got to France, you and her were going to go eat baguettes and cheese and wine every Thursday based on something that you put in your head. You had a fantasy. You had an expectation to that. So again, where you want to remember is your boundaries are not set in emotion. Your boundaries are not like, well, this is my boundary for you, and then you, and then you, and you, and you, and my boundaries for my family. No, what? No, this is about your peace, and you'd never, ever establish a boundary out of emotion. Ever, never. Okay. So this is where, like I said, it becomes manipulative because when you have expectations, those high expectations, will create high levels of disappointment for yourself, but it's also manipulative because now you start doing that passive aggressive stuff. Oh, well, I mean, sure, I guess I will do it for you. I mean, why not? I do it for you every other time. Whoa, what? Tell me what you are trying to say, because skirting around the issue is not the one. Oh, you had an expectation based in a fantasy of how you wanted it to be. And now you have a hard time accepting that, oh my God, that person didn't follow suit because you're the only one who had the idea that this is how it was supposed to be. It was not a discussion. You didn't have an open discussion like, hey, I was thinking about moving to France. Oh my God, that'd be great. Well, if I moved to France, I was thinking maybe we could do, baguettes and cheese and wine on Thursdays. And then the person goes, I mean, it sounds great, but I'm not going to do that every Thursday. I'm not sure how often I'll do it, but every now and again. Okay, so now you've had open communication. This is why open communication prevents, like full-on honest open communication, prevents the manipulation. Because now your feelings can be hurt, but its feelings are hurt here in the States. You didn't uproot and head over to France, and now you're upset, and now you're holding it against them because they didn't fall in line with what it is for you. Your expectations are yours and yours only. And it becomes problematic when you start trying to manipulate it and you start trying to guilt trip, which we're coming into the very next one. And so this is extremely problematic. Oh yeah, guilt tripping. Oh yeah, guilt tripping is extremely manipulative. Oh my God, guilt tripping is like, every time I want to tell you this one's the top one, I'm going to say that about every single one. So I think they're all tied. But guilt tripping is manipulation on its highest. And you may see this as we're coming into the holiday season. You'll see that a lot. Well, I mean, what do you mean you're not? Yes, you're coming to the house. Your grandmother's going to be here. You don't know when she's going to not be here anymore. What? No. And you can't be guilt tripped. You can be attempted to be guilt tripped. You can only be guilt tripped if you allow yourself to fall victim to that guilt tripping. And trust me, you got to be careful with yourself. So since this is about you, we're going to put this back on you. Are you guilt tripping? Are you saying, I threw you a birthday party, you can't do the dishes? I threw you a birthday party, you can't help me fold a load of laundry? What? Whoa. Oh, you're doing that expectation thing. I did something nice for you. You owe me. Oh no. Oh God, no. So what if you have adult children that don't want to see you on Thanksgiving? It's okay. It's all right. You're allowed to have your feelings hurt, but in the same token, you are not allowed to start guilt tripping people into, well, I mean, I know, but like I just kind of wanted to. That's that. So guilt tripping and passive aggression are like married. They're like really twinsies. They're twinning. Okay. And the reason I say that is because when you are passive aggressive, you could say something like, let's say, okay, so I live not terribly far from the beach. So let's say I said, I don't know, say I was going to go to the beach. Oh, I'm going to go to the beach. And then instead of you going, oh my God, that sounds like fun. Great. You're also allowed to say, hey, do you want company? And then I go, no, nope, I don't really want company. I'm going to go by myself. Okay. That's a great conversation. That's beautiful. Love that. Where it becomes problematic is this is the I'm going to give you a sentence that is an example of passive aggression and guilt tripping in the same sentence. Okay. I'm going to go to the beach today. It's going to be great. Oh, I've never been to the beach. That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay. Yeah, it is. I mean, I guess I'm not going to be able to get to the beach this year. You can go to the beach. You don't need me to go to the beach with you. Like, you know what I'm saying? So do you see what I'm saying? Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. The first conversation was, oh man, that sounds great. Do you want some company? I'd love to go. That's fine. And then be okay with hearing, no, I'm just going to go by myself, or I'm just going with the family, or I'm just going with a couple friends, whatever it is. Okay. That's fine. You've said it. The person said, no, we're great. Communication's amazing. But because you don't have those strong communication skills and you're afraid of rejection, which we know is a trauma response, we're going to talk about that. That's on my task list to do for a podcast for you guys, is rejection, fear of rejection, and abandonment, blah, blah, blah. And those kind of go hand in hand too. But the reality is when you start hemming and hawing and being like, oh man, that sounds like so much fun. Like I haven't been to the beach yet. Okay. So now you're being passive aggressive instead of just asking. Right? Because if you really said, oh man, that's a great idea. You know what? I haven't been to the beach yet. I think I might go down there this weekend. That's great. Oh man, I wasn't even thinking about the beach. I'd love to go to the beach. I haven't even been there yet. I'm going to go next weekend. Beautiful. Love that conversation. Let's do it. You do it. Have a great time. I don't need to be with you. That's not passive aggression. Passive aggression is, I guess I'm not going to be able to get down there this year. I've never been. Oh, okay. Manipulation, because now you're trying to worm your way in there for the invite. No, you can ask and be okay with receiving the no. And I said this in the passive aggressive podcast. The big key with communication, why a lot of people are afraid to have not confrontation, let's say conflict, whatever you want to say, to confront something, is because you're afraid to hear the answer. You want to be direct, but be prepared and be aware that that person also has a right to be direct. Oh, I would love to go. Yeah, I'm not going to have you come today. Like, it's just me, just going down by myself. That's it. There's no debate. There's no need for conversation. None. You can be like, oh, damn, she didn't invite me. No, I didn't. But I'm not asking you not to go. So you got to keep in mind, because you're guilt tripping. Oh boy, you might be guilt tripping your friends, your family, your adult children. It's kind of, yeah, maybe with young children too, but it's a really big gray area. So I kind of, because sometimes you're going to have to not manipulate them, but you have to direct them, right? Because they don't know. But when they become adults, they don't owe you anything. Your adult children owes you nothing. So what if you paid for the wedding and then they didn't spend all wedding talking to you? It's not so? Then don't do it. Don't do it with an expectation. Don't do it to try to out-parent the other parents. Like, oh my God, that goes into so much manipulation. So you have to remind yourself that if I'm doing something kind, I'm doing it because I choose to do it. Nobody owes me anything. You don't throw something that you're doing for somebody up in their face. That is absolutely manipulation on its highest point. Okay. And then that's where we come into the very next one, which is now you're going to punish people. Now this kind of goes into that procrastination with people too. You're going to punish them. That's right. Oh, okay, fine. That's fine. Then I just won't pay for the wedding then. If they're not going to have it where I want them to have it, I'm not going to pay for the wedding. Okay, then don't. Let them figure it out. Stop trying to hold things over people's head, right? Stop trying to punish them for an idea that and an expectation that you carried, a fantasy that you had, an idea how you want it to be, and now you're going to punish people. Yep, you're going to completely punish them. You're not going to give them anything. Nope, you're not helping them. You're not doing. Now, this is not to be confused with someone taking advantage of you, someone being manipulative to you, being passive aggressive to you, and then you have boundaries. Two totally different things. That's a boundary. Nope, not going to do it anymore. Burn you once, shame on you. Burn me twice, shame on me, right? I know that you've heard that, right? Betray me once, and betray could be in any way. But the first time somebody's a little shady, that's on them. The second time you allow somebody to be shady by putting yourself out there again, It's not on them, baby. It's on you. You don't get to get mad at the brick wall every time you run into the brick wall, because a brick wall is a brick wall. Got to remember the audience and what you're dealing with. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind, because that can be like totally problematic. So you don't want to do that. Just like smear campaigns kind of go hand in hand with this. I'm going to punish you, and I'm going to tell everybody that you're a horrible person. Yeah, that's manipulation. That's insecurity. There's a lot to unbox in that one little word of smearing. Yes. And remember, don't try to defend yourself against a smear campaign. I know you want to, but the person that they're talking to, if the person talks to you and comes to you, you know, you got a solid friend. And I don't mean talk about the person, just say, hey, you know, somebody brought this up and I'd love to know your side of the story. Great. My God, I love that. Let's talk about it. But if somebody smears you to somebody, so do not smear anybody. Stop it. That does not look cute on you. Smearing somebody is not going to give you the outcome you seek. Smearing somebody, if you walk up to me and you start smearing somebody to me, I'm going to basically say, are you okay? I'm literally going to say, are you okay? And do we need to book a session? That's going to be the first. I do not care what you say about that person. That person did not do me dirty. I'm good. Okay. So you have to ask yourself, am I punishing somebody, or am I trying to punish someone because they didn't fit my narrative? Am I trying to smear someone because I don't like the fact that I'm out of control with things? Well, some things are going to be out of your control. 98% of things in this world are out of your control. So what does that mean? That means you got to ask yourself, what am I in control of and what can I focus on? Okay. Now, another one, blaming. Blaming is manipulation because it goes into victim mentality. Blaming. I'm this way because of my childhood. Yes, we know that that's a reason. You do not get to keep living in that. Well, this is all I've been all my life. Yeah, okay, gotcha. But what are you going to do with it now? Stop blaming people for your actions. Well, that's right. I did this because that person pulled me out of character. Oh, you just totally didn't take it. It's like I'm sure you've seen people, and hopefully this hasn't been you, but if it has, give yourself permission to forgive yourself, well, yeah, I acted that way because you yelled at me. Whoa. Two different topics here. Am I apologizing to you? Or I'm sorry, are you apologizing to me? Or did you just apologize to me and backhand it and say that it was my fault that you did that? Do not do that to people. This is on you now. Do not blame everything and everybody for you coming out of character because of something they did or did not do. No. That is manipulation. No. This person did this, so I did this. Stop blaming people for your actions. Stop. That is not going to serve you. You're not going to find healing there. You're not going to find self-awareness, self-comfort. You're not going to find it here. It just isn't. You know, and I think that is probably one of the biggest things for you. Now, we know some of this comes from a negative personality disorder, and that's okay. That comes from many, many places. You know, but what you have to understand is that you have ego, personal gain. You know you're being manipulative if you're doing anything for personal gain. Now, I'm not talking about like work. I mean, yeah, you're going to have to do a lot of things for personal gain, mostly for yourself. Your self-care, your self-healing, your self-love is all based in personal gain of self. Where it becomes problematic is you're trying to have personal gain from another person. You're trying to step on anybody out of your personal, hey, I need this and I'm willing to step on anybody. Listen, I lived at that with my dad. Listen, when in his narcissistic ways in life, oh my goodness, he would step on anybody to get whatever it is he wanted. Whatever he wanted, he was going to get it. And he didn't care who he hurt and what he did, as long as he ended up on top. That's also called narcissism. So yes, if you're doing things for personal gain and you don't care who gets hurt along the way, yeah, now we have to start talking a little bit about narcissism. Now that's a whole different, and narcissism is extremely manipulative. And not all narcissism is bad, by the way. I even did a podcast on that, I believe. So there's, when you have your confidence and stuff like that, that's positive, healthy narcissism. So not the word narcissism doesn't always have to be affiliated with something super negative, but think of this, right? If you are tricking someone and being shady to get someone to do what you want them to do, that is manipulation. So just think of that. So it could be anything: gaslighting, withholding information, expectations, anything. If you're doing any of the above to trick someone into doing something, yes, that is you being manipulative. We do not have to do that, right? And to be honest with you, manipulation, something we learn in human behavior, manipulation itself comes from not being able to handle your own feelings. Feelings of understanding that you're disappointed. Feelings of understanding, well, why am I disappointed? Where did that come from? What did I learn from it? Yeah, that's where manipulation comes from. Not, the ability to try to give all of these other people power to try to fit in your box, and it just becomes a problem. But I don't want you to berate yourself, because that's not going to help you. Beating yourself up goes into self-sabotage. Anytime you start talking negative, beating yourself up, that's self-sabotage. That's all that is, right? And it's typically not even your voice. So if this is you, if any of these are you, then yes, you are being manipulative. This does not mean beat yourself up. This means be aware of it. Be honest with yourself. Stop lying to yourself. You'll never heal until you're honest with yourself. And appreciate and accept that other people aren't here for your happiness. That's not why people are on the planet. We're all just trying to figure it out. But yes, go back, listen to the last couple ones, and you'll kind of see, oh, there's a trait here. And it is going to be a pattern, not a trait. It's going to be from low self-esteem. No one who is in a positive headspace and who's really working on themselves, I promise you that when people are doing good, they don't really care about what other people are doing. Like, seriously, there's no comparison. There's no FOMO. There is none of that, because you're too busy healing your stuff. You will be growing for the rest of your life. You're never going to master anything. So get that completely out of your head. Well, I can master this. No, you can't. I mean, you might look at Serena and Venus Williams and be like, oh my God, they mastered tennis. They're fabulous at tennis. They are icons at tennis. I promise you, there's going to be somebody else who comes along who's going to be just a little bit better. Why? Because they can still grow. And they know that. I mean, they're retired now, but when they were on the circuit, why do you think they got where they got? They didn't get there because they were like, well, I mastered the backhand. I'm great. Nope. They still kept doing the backhand. Even when the average lay person like you and I could look and be like, oh my God, they have perfection there, which we know is fake. But like, oh my God, they're great. They may look at that and be like, yep, still working on this. Tiger Woods still works on it. The best race car driver still works on it. Why do you think they practice? There will always be something that you will continue to grow and work on. And until you can accept that, you're living in your ego. You're never going to master it, but you will get to a space to where you go, wow, you want to be the least knowledgeable in the room so you can come out learning. You want to read the books. You want to realize the knowledge that you have is both amazing. But if you ask me, how do you take a carburetor? Well, I might know how to do a carburetor, but like, how do you operate on a brain? I might know very, very basic knowledge. Scalpel. Got it. Not even a scalpel. You need that little drill thing. See? But I have no knowledge with that. None. Zero. Nothing. But if you ask me this stuff, yeah, I'm very good at it. And I will continue to learn. And I will keep continuing to learn. And I will keep growing. And I will keep staying humble because I am growing. And so when you do that and you start realizing that nobody on this planet is here for your happiness, no one's here to fit a narrative that you give them and that you assign them, and nobody owes you anything, and nobody's saving you, nobody cares if you make your goals. When you get clear with that, you can channel all that energy and all that time that you're trying to get personal gain from people and literally put it on yourself. If you take all that energy and you take all that manipulation and all this stuff and all of these things and you put it into yourself, holy crap, could you imagine how amazing you're going to be? So let's do that. Stop giving everybody your power. It isn't about everybody else. This is about you. So we're going to pop over to the Patreon. We're going to talk about how we can start switching and changing some of this up with a worksheet, of course, because it comes with a worksheet. But yes, be honest with yourself. This is a great thing to journal in your 5 journals. Leave me a comment on this. Also, I know a lot of you listen to it on just regular podcasts. This also goes up on my YouTube. Drop something down in there. Let's talk about it. Let's open it up. Like, be honest. We can talk about it. If you're in the Patreon, we can talk about it on the Patreon, like on the website, like on the page, like everything is there. We can talk about it. And so I want you to be very, very clear in it. And I want you to allow yourself that time and space to be honest with yourself. Give yourself compassion and empathy, because a lot of the reasons you're here today is because you had to use it to get here in survival. So be kind to yourself. Love yourself. Appreciate your flaws. Appreciate your goods and bads and everything in between.